the gifts that you get from our new practice is working with really nice families, really nice people. And you do it on a level where there's no social agenda, there's nothing but this, I don't know, the sinews of life. And so it's been a real gift to me. And one of the gifts that I've gotten is my friendship with Tracy. When I was, what I want to do to start off here, and I don't want to overdo it, but I want to read from the book that I wrote, Much Abides. And it's about Tracy, and it's about our experience with each other and when we first met and how we formed this bond. I hope it's not too long, but I do think it covers some stuff that's really important, okay? So I say in about the middle point of the chapter called Extra Credit, my new practice has made me a party to human suffering every day. My patients and families struggling with Alzheimer's and related dementias have had their lives pushed to the edge of reason and tolerance. There is no pause or respite, only more decline and sometimes more humiliation. And yet in this setting, I see the human spirit at its best, indomitable, defiant, and resolute. I see wonder in these travails. Let me show you what I mean. PR, which is Tracy's wife, Polly, is 58 years old with early onset Alzheimer's disease. Let me read that line again. She is 58 years old. Her problems with memory and cognition began more than 8 years ago when she could no longer remember details of her husband's business trips. Where are you going? How long are you going to be gone? She repeatedly would ask. At first, her husband, TR, Tracy, my buddy here, thought she wasn't listening. Relating it to menopause became an excuse. It wasn't until her friends confronted him that he began to take the symptoms seriously. TR then noted that she was having difficulty communicating seriously. TR then noted she was having difficulty communicating. It was as if she knew what she wanted to say, but couldn't find the words. When eating, there were times where she could not see her plate or utensils. She had overreached for items. She lost confidence in driving and stopped voluntarily. Her husband brought her to Memory and Movement Charlotte for an evaluation. After taking a history and performing neuropsychological testing and a physical exam, I had to inform Tracy that this was early onset Alzheimer's disease. He was in shock. He left asking me if he could return in a few days after he got his thoughts together. 3 days later, he returned. The last 3 days have been hell, he said. I have had my pity party and now I'm mad. I want you to teach me about this disease and how I can fight it. Doc, I have to warn you, I don't have any give up in me. Early Alzheimer's is a different disease, I explained. It affects different parts of the brain than late onset. It affects what she sees and her orientation in space, along with memory and cognition. That is why she stops eating abruptly. She loses sight of the plate. She can no longer measure distances, resulting in her overreaching for objects. He interrupts. What can I do? Is there anything in my control to slow this down or just to make it a little better? Yes, I tell him. Exercise, social interaction, emotional support can make a difference. If she is depressed or agitated, we can treat that with medication. But the harsh reality is that the disease is progressive and she will get worse. He asked, where are we now? What stage are we in? We are in late stage 4, I respond. There are 7 stages. He asked if there are any predictions as far as how fast it will progress. My answer is no. This is where it began. He refused to let the disease take its course without a fight. He called every important person in his life and formed an army he called his army of angels. I will need your help to support both of us, he told me. Help me fight this disease. Every morning they were up at 6 and in the gym. She was on the treadmill. Then he would train her with yoga and weights. He scheduled trips with friends and family all over the world. He took the neuropsychiatric test home and gave it the same test every day. At first, she improved, and I'd get a text message with nothing but a number. It would read 22 that day. Her initial test was 18 out of 30. He is a little bit obsessive, but I would just get a text and it would just have the number of how she did, not who he was or what it was. It was like 28, 27. He was going to beat this, all right? This intensity allowed her to remain stable for nearly 2 years. When the inevitable decline began, it was unbearable for him. She could no longer walk on the treadmill. She could not be left alone. Confusion and fear became constant companions, preventing any travel. Her test scores began to drop, and when the disease resisted his efforts, TR began to break down. He'd have unexplained panic attacks, one during a high-level meeting with his bosses in New York. Counseling and medication eliminated the panic attacks, but not the heartache. His wife was now often incontinent and asking in his presence, "Where is my husband? Where is Tracy?" TR is a planner. He had already researched facilities that would be appropriate for her. He knew that he could no longer care for her at home. His mother could no longer handle her when he was away on business. And he knew that in the right setting, she would have stimulation and better care than hired caregivers could give her at home. The first weeks apart were excruciating for him, even though she adjusted beautifully to the new situation. He gave himself no credit for the superhuman efforts he had put forth for 4 years. He felt only guilt. This feeling slowly ebbed as he became convinced that she was better off now than at home. We are now 5 years into the decline. It's had its ups and downs, tears and laughter, often at the same time. A bond has been forged between TR and me, the product of trust and the realization that we both love her. How about reading here?
Yeah. His panic and despondency are gone, jettisoned by the dual awareness that she can no longer speak for herself and that it has fallen on us to ensure she is calm, safe, and clean in love. What does this have to do with wonder? The transfiguring attentiveness shows itself differently in each of us. In TR, it is his total submission to her agenda and needs. It has endured through anger, defiance, obsession, and defeat, all of which took him to the limits of his own sanity. His battle against the disease has been elevated to the extraordinary by his rage against the decline and by his dedication to her. For me, the wonder in this, the transfiguring attentiveness is being so deeply immersed in the struggle. Without the wonder and the resilience of the human spirit, it is all a tragedy and despair. After the ordeal is over, the caregivers have been transformed, they are embodied and have survived and know that life has nothing more tragic to throw at them. The experience, the suffering has opened venues of emotion and understanding that has made them more aware, calmer, and stronger. Right there.
This added dimension of the human experience is the gift that wonder offers to those who pay attention. Okay? So, without the wonder and resilience of the human spirit, it is all tragedy and despair. After the ordeal is over, the caregivers have been transformed. They are emboldened by having survived and know that life has nothing more tragic to throw at them. The experience, the suffering, has opened avenues of emotion and understanding that has made them more aware, calmer, and stronger. There's nothing else life's going to throw at you that's any tougher. This added dimension of the human experience is the gift that wonder offers to those who pay attention. You may think that TR and his story are rare. It is not. His approach was unique, but the courage and resilience he exhibited is not. My caregivers and patients, yes, the patients, show these qualities every day. Their late years have been hijacked by Alzheimer's disease, but their spirit should be an example to us of what extraordinary really means. Okay. Now you're going to come back to that when we, okay.
Okay.
All right. So we are going to, I'm going to get Tracy. One of the things that is, there's a couple of places that are always hard. Every patient is unique, and you've heard me say that 1,000 times. But each journey that we have has certain places that are tough. Okay. And I'm going to talk today, and I'm going to describe what I mean by that, and then I'm going to get Tracy to talk about how he worked through this. And that is what I call the decision. All right, there are two really decisions that we face. One is a little bit easy. That is the decision when a couple, often for us, uneven couples, one whole and one what we call down-ticked or have memory issues, decides to go into a retirement facility. That's a decision, and there's a lot of criteria on it. The other decision that we're going to talk about today is the decision when we can no longer care for the patient at home, and things have advanced to where we need help. The patient needs more care. When Tracy and I, we worked on this for almost a year before we placed Polly. Some days he'd say, "We got to do it. I got to do it," and then he'd come back and say, "No, I can't do it." And we went back and forth a lot. So I'm going to turn it over to him to kind of share with us emotionally. You okay?
No, I'm good. No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
About how he and I, what were the criteria that we used to make the decision, and how did that decision work out?
Okay. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here. It's not only a pleasure, it's an honor. And as Chuck was reading the story, to be honest with you, it's deja vu because I'm sure you remember the room we're sitting in right now, the exact room 5 years ago, was when I first met Chuck with Polly. So the three of us were in this room together. I kind of had an idea what was going to take place, but I didn't hear the definite words of what she had. And as he just wrote, it was just, that's where the journey started. It was a major, major blow. So I'm not going to reiterate everything that he's read, but I do want to say before I forget, and I mean this in all sincerity, I wouldn't be standing here without the support of this man. This guy is a rock star. He truly is. And if you haven't read the book, gotten the book, you will see what this man's life has been, his entire journey. And it's just nothing short of amazing. It was just the luck of the draw, or I wouldn't say luck of the draw, it was God, I honestly believe, that led me to see Chuck, because I didn't know where to go. And then when I met him, it just, everything fell into place exactly where we are right now. And so for all of you that are a part of this amazing organization, feel blessed because like I said, I'm living because of this man, this Memory Care Movement Center, and my friends and family and my army of angels that I call. Anyway, so to answer, kind of to say this, the other thing I'll say before we get into it is this is a tough gig. Nobody on this call would raise their hand to say, sign me up for this. Nobody wants this. You look at commercials and you see these type of things and you just pray like, God, I hope this never happens to me or any of my loved one. And then when it does, it just knocks you off your feet, needless to say. So I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to probably be one of the most challenging things that you're going to go through in your life. It is not easy, but at the same token, it is going to be probably one of the most rewarding experiences that you will look back on, and I can say confidently you'll have no regrets from that standpoint. But it's not easy, and we're going to get into that. So I just want to say a few of those things. The decision on how we got Polly. Yeah. So, when I met Chuck here 5 years ago, she was pretty good. She was at stage 4, and we were coasting for quite a few years. She was and these are good years that you can still have in stage 3, 4, 5, 6 gets tough, from that standpoint. But it got to a point where, as Chuck, indicated, it's a lot of stress on a caregiver. I'm very active. I do a lot of things. I swim, I do yoga, I do a lot of different things physically. In one year, I had to call 911 3 times because I thought I was having a heart attack, as kind of Chuck indicated. So as things were progressing, I kept leaning harder on Chuck on guiding me through this process. As a caregiver, you don't want to abandon somebody that you've loved. Polly and I have been married now for 34 years. So it's just a natural instinct, human spirit. You don't want to abandon or give up on the person that you love so much. But there comes a point where it gets to be absolutely, at points, unbearable. And so in a year's period, Chuck counseled me, did a lot of investigating at a lot of different facilities. In fact, I took a year and I looked at every facility here in Charlotte and then near South Carolina as well, and found a really great place where she is currently right now. To get to that point, though, it's almost like, in my opinion, kind of like in the beginning, when you first get hit with this news, it's denial, right? Because you don't want to go there. But eventually you've got to come to the realization that if you truly love the person that you love, then you got to be able to come to that point where you can try to, you've got to make that decision. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Do you want to do it? Absolutely not. But now looking back, and Polly's been in this facility for 2.5 years, it was no doubt the best decision that I have made through this whole process. There's a dear friend now down in Tampa right now who I've worked with for 30 years who's on this call. His name is Phil Jett. And I am now counseling him through this process as well. And so, but once you make that decision, it's like, I don't know, the piano's off your back or whatever. There's this relief. But then there's a process that you have to go through. The one thing I'll say, and I'll turn it over to Chuck, is that, and I think Chuck told me this, is that when you're a caregiver, it's 24/7. You're giving everything, like, as you know, what you can for the person that you love. And I lost a little bit of that identity with Paulie, who I love so much because she's my wife, right? But once I put her in the facility, and then I had the professionals really take care of her, then I was able to go back to be her husband in many ways. And it's a different role. So I would just, if you get to that point, I would highly encourage it.
One of the things that I want to stress here is a couple of the indications of what is it that we come to the point where we say, you can't do this anymore at home and we've got to get help. One of the first things is physical decline. This especially occurs in Parkinson's disease, where the patient no longer is able to stand or ambulate in the home, and they, if they do fall, there's no way that the caregiver can get them up, and we are out of bullets. We are calling the fire department, trying to keep things, to try to get the patient back up. The second thing that we see is the specter of wandering. When the patient has the delusion, the false fixed belief that they don't live in this place anymore. Okay, I don't live here. Or they'll say, when are we going home? If they have that delusion and they have the ability to walk, they are going to go out the door. They can no longer be left alone. Okay. The third thing is obviously continence. When the patient becomes incontinent, it becomes overwhelming to care for them. And the last thing is the caregiver being overwhelmed. Now, what happens, it's not like you turn your back on the patient or that you have control over this. It is a switch that is thrown for you. You don't throw it. But all of a sudden, there's a point where you can't do this. You literally cannot do it anymore. Now, oftentimes, what happens is people have a kind of a strange feeling. When Polly goes into the facility, Tracy's buddies say, well, you're doing better now. Polly's not, at home and you don't have to take care of her. Well, actually, that period just after you place your loved one in a facility is emotionally the hardest thing during your whole journey, because you have incredible guilt about somehow failing in the situation. Okay, you've done this for 4 years, and yet you don't give yourself any credit. Now, what happens is that the patient is no longer with you, and you're not there, 24/7, and you're not, having her in the shower all the time and all that stuff. But what creeps in is what's called anhedonia. That you say, well, finally, I think I'll go play bridge with my friends. And you're sitting at the bridge table, they've dealt out the cards, and you're looking at the cards, and there's the Queen of Diamonds and the King of Diamonds, and you go, my husband is in a mental facility, and I'm sitting here playing bridge. I can't do this. You put the cards down, and you're out of there, okay? So what I'm trying to do is to prepare that I don't want you to do that. I want you to play bridge. But I want you to be prepared for the concept of anhedonia, losing the pleasure of things that used to give you pleasure. And I also want you to realize that in that first phase, after placement, it is emotionally as hard as it gets, okay? And the whole world thinks you're doing better. So, you can't catch a break on this. All right, I want Tracy to kind of give us an idea of when he went to look at facilities. What did he see, and what was it about this one facility that he thought was good for Polly? And then also, did the facility always live up to the expectations that he had?
Yeah, no problem. As you were just saying something, just to kind of dovetail on a quick funny, because I want to keep this a little bit light, because this is a heavy topic, as we all know.
Yeah, Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah. But what Chuck was saying just a moment ago, it was funny when I was reminiscing when I put Polly in the facility she's in. My daughter flew down to actually come and support me, and so it took me a week to actually. I couldn't be there to see Polly because we wanted to get her adjusted. So, long story short, my daughter and I are going out to dinner. We're walking out of the restaurant, and as we're walking out to the car, I grab my daughter's hand. I'm holding her hand, and now she's 28 years old, and she goes, "Dad, what the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Why are you holding my hand?" And it hit me because 2 days prior to that is when I put my wife into this memory care home. And I stopped and I looked at Allie and I said, first, I'm sorry. I said, but you got to understand something, Allie. I said, I've been holding your mother's hand for the last 5 years wherever I go. So this is a natural thing for me to just do, right? So these are the things that you're going to kind of to adjust to. Getting back to Chuck's question, again, I took a year to research, and there's a lot of great facilities out there. There's large formats, there's small formats, and I'm not going to go into names, and I'm not going to advertise the facilities out here. That's not the place nor the time here. But what I am going to say is this: there are different formats. The format where Polly's in right now, she's in a small format. She's in a home with 6 residents, and she's been there for 2.5 years. And I've been extremely, extremely pleased with where she is at, because it is, the reason why I'm so happy is it's a home. It is literally a home. It's not I saw some of the nice bigger facilities, but what I saw there is that the people care and they love her and they love all the residents. And that was a big thing to me from that standpoint. Now, there's a flip side to this, though, too, because over a period of time, and Chuck might expand on this later, but what I'm noticing now is that as she's in the final stage, she's been in a home for 2.5 years, and the staff have become her family. They love her just as much as I love her, right? So it goes back. People are people, we love the human spirit. And when you go through this, it can be very challenging, but I've been extremely pleased with where she is at. They take excellent care of her, and I have the ability, I go see her just about every day, which I'll share later on an experience, which was absolutely beautiful that I had with her yesterday, but I won't get into that now. But hopefully, did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the very first days that someone is placed in a facility. And this is everybody is kind of edgy. Everybody's getting used to the new reality, and people are sensitive. And the expectation is that the care is going to be perfect. And the guilt that we have as caregivers, that we have in some way abandoned or whatever, given up, we have that. So therefore, our expectation is extremely high on the facility. So oftentimes the caregivers will come and they'll see something that's not perfect. And the next thing you know, they have clouded up and rained on everybody. And the emotion that comes out and the anger that comes out is totally disproportionate to what happened. And all of a sudden you're on the wrong track. So we call this coffee and donuts time. That I like for the caregivers who are visiting, I want them to know the caregiver names, every one of them, and I want them to actively ask about the caregivers' families. Because when you start to know someone, and then all of a sudden you realize that one of these ladies takes care of her mother who has the same disease, but she can't afford to put her in this nice place. And you begin to understand there's only one criteria that we have for these sensational caregivers that we have, okay? We get to know them, and they are on the bottom rung of the caregiving ladder, okay? You've got your CNAs, and then you've got LPNs, you got RNs, but the only people that you care about are the ones that are taking care of, the ones that are right there caring for your loved one. And we only have one criteria for these people. Do they have the capacity to love the patient? Do they have the capacity to love the patient? It is amazing to me that these people who are making sometimes $9.50, $10.50, $12.50 an hour are so professional and so dedicated. So don't miss respecting them, because you disrespect them and you come in and cloud and rain all over them, that's going to affect the care that your loved one gets. Not in a deficient way, but if they know that you appreciate them, they're going to take extra good care of your loved one. I want Tracy to, we have come a long way now. And Paulie is in stage 7. She really does not make eye contact with us. Now she will, we can joke. I told her the other day that she went to UNC. She's a really smart lady because she got into UNC from out of state 20 or 30 years ago. And I used to love to kid her about that. But as you all know, UNC just beat the hell out of the University of Virginia. And so I told her that, and she turned to me and she said, "That's terrific." Okay, so she can still kind of play with us a little bit. So Tracy, we are down the road now. You go in there, and it's hard. It's hard to see her. It's hard to even imagine the person that we knew and took care of 5 years ago is that lady that's in front of us. And so how do you emotionally deal with that? What is it that allows you to come and still get something out of this? Tell us that story and give us an idea of how you've emotionally dealt with that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. He's giving such great information on everything. I'm just absorbing it as he's talking. And I'm going to get to that because there's something he said earlier that I definitely want to dovetail on, is that, he was talking about the coffee and donuts. Chuck comes in and sees Paulie, once every 4 to 6 weeks in the facility because she can't come in here. And I just want to say this, that every time he comes into the facility where she's at right now, the staff there light up. And I'm not saying it because he's just sitting here. It's the honest to God truth. And again, if you read his book, you'll see the type of man that he is, because he talks about in the beginning of the book and how he went through his residency to establish relationships. This is a people doctor, a people man. Brilliant, but has the ability to connect with people. And that's what makes it so special. So that's very important, from that standpoint. And I want to definitely make that clear. And it's helped me, because, I try to show my appreciation to that staff. And he is absolutely right. The caregivers that are in this profession, they are angels. They are beyond angels. And you can't say enough about them for what they do. Anyway, getting now to kind of the question that you're asking. This is, like I said, this is a tough gig. When I saw Chuck, 5-6 years ago here in this room, Paulie was highly functioning. It was the same exact day that when I heard she had early onset Alzheimer's that I made the decision, she stopped driving. So she drove here to this appointment. We left out of here. She didn't drive since. And so it was definitely a tough gig from that standpoint. But when she was stage 4 or 5, as I said, it's manageable. But now you get to this final stage 7. I kind of knew what to expect. Chuck was amazing because as much as I was trying to press him 5 years ago of what each stage was and the finality, he goes, let's not even go there, because he knew that my heart and my mind could not even wrap around trying to even conceive of what that was going to be like. And he, being as smart and brilliant as he is, he was absolutely right. It was kind of like wisdom, because it gave me 5 years to go through this journey that I'm at the final stage where she's at. We did a little prep before this call, and we talked about, do you want to talk about this final stage? And I said, yes, I do. This is going to be hard. This is a tough stage. It's a horrific stage to go through. And I wish I could say something, I wish I could candy coat it, but if I did, I would be doing you a disservice. But I always try to look at the glass half full and everything that I've gone through in life. And I thought about this today, knowing we were going to be together. In his book, he does great quotes, and T.S. Eliot, he started the chapter off that he wrote about Paulie and I, which I felt honored. The quote is, "Teach us to care, not care, and to sit still." So when I read the book, I blow through that, that quote and just keep reading. I didn't think much of it. Today, I thought a lot about it, and it's so true. As I said, to teach us to care, all of us care because we love the people that we're going through this journey with. Teach us not to care. That's a tough one. All right. For me, and I think for all of you, it's what I had to learn is that I am such a control freak, just through my competitiveness, through business, whatever the case may be. I always want to be in control. You can't control this thing. You can't. You can't plan this disease. And my God, for 6 years, I have tried to plan this disease, and you can't do it. So you've got to have the ability to let go which is really hard. You've got to have the ability not to feel guilty, which is really hard. You've got to have the ability, which Chuck has taught me over the period of time, to have grace for yourself, to give yourself a break, because you're going to get frustrated, you're going to get anxious, you're going to have a lot of these different emotions that you're going to go through. And the beauty of this last quote is, teach us to sit still. And so yesterday I was with Polly, and she only can say probably a few words at best throughout the entire day. Few words, not even more than 5 on one hand. She does not know who I am. She is incontinent. She's bedridden. She's wheelchair bound and bedridden. She can't stand up. She can't walk. The only thing that's keeping her alive is she can take her right hand and she can feed herself, but she has to eat with her fingers. She can't use utensils. It is the body, the brain is shutting down. I don't know all the medical stuff, but I know that what I'm seeing in front of me, she is shutting down. And it is really heartbreaking to go through this at this stage. But the beauty of it is that I can still see her. And we go out on this beautiful deck where she's at, and they've got trees, and I take my little music box. She loves Neil Diamond. And we listen to music. And we sit there looking at the trees, and I just hold her hand. She can't sing the words. She can't hum the words. She can't do anything. But we just sit there and we're still. And I know that probably soon, she is going to go. I don't know when. We don't know when. But when she does go, it is going to be memories that I'll carry with me for a lifetime. And that is the beauty of as hard as this is. Don't forget, Polly is still Polly. Her brain's not there, her body's not there, but her spirit's still there. And her love for each other is still there. And that will never, ever change.
We're going to just have about just a minute just to think about that. Okay, we're going to open this up to questions. Please don't be bashful. If you have something on your mind, this might not be the forum, but if it is, then let it go. This last thing that Tracy was talking about was so powerful. And this is what I was talking about when I'm saying that the gift to those of us who have dealt with this horrible disease and have cared for people that we love, it takes away all of the social agenda. The phonies in your life are gone. Okay, the people that say, let me help you, and they're gone. And then the people that come forward who want to help, who are in the trenches with you, they're going to be your friends forever. So it opens up avenues in our life of true relationships. And so we have to pay attention to that and not feel, like Tracy said, he's a half glass full guy, okay, not half empty. And that's what we have to look for, the good, because life is going to go on after this and we can't be embittered. We've talked enough, Janet, so we want to open this up. Boyd, let's open up to some questions and see how that works, okay?
Yes, and like Dr. Edwards said, I mean, there's each patient's differently. In the beginning, when she was in the middle stages, I surrounded her with people, of course, that knew her, family and friends, things of that sort. One thing too that, and I'm sure that you can probably, or a lot of you will attest to this, is that you'll be in a social setting and, you know, somebody will, let's say you're at a party and somebody asks her a question, and then, or ask your spouse or loved one a question and they can't answer it, and you know that you're going to be there to just, you know, butt in immediately to kind of just sidetrack the conversation so they're not, put on the spot, that type of thing. So as Chuck said, what happens is there's this tethering period where, you know, they're constantly around you, that because you are, as the caregiver, you're the security blanket. And then when you have to start making decisions to get other people involved, that's a tough one, you know, so you've got to be very methodical about it. When we placed her into the memory care home, we spent months talking about this, Chuck and I. And what was it called? Imaging or something like that? It was, what was the phrase that you called it? It was like when we went in and we had
imprinting.
So you can kind of hit on that one.
Well, what imprinting means for us is that when the patient is very resistant to having strangers around them, what you try to do is take the strangeness out, and you do it by introducing the person with you. So you're getting ready to have a caregiver come in and be there for 4 hours. Well, you don't just come in, drop them off, and take off. The first 3 or 4 times that they're there with you, and maybe you go out to lunch together, and then the patient begins to realize that the caregiver is an extension of the person I love the most in the world. Mm-hmm. And so, and this has worked for us. Now, I'm not saying it works all the time. Nothing works all the time. And the more I promise it, the less it works, okay? Mm-hmm. But the imprinting, it might take 2 weeks for this to work. Mm-hmm. But then when it does, then all of a sudden you've got someone that is trusted and that can drive. And so we work on this all the time.
It worked, to be honest with you, it worked flawlessly. I mean, again, a planner, I'll never forget, a month after she went in, I came in to see Chuck myself, and he goes, how did it go? And I said, it went to perfection. It went to absolutely perfection because of how we worked the imprinting and the strategy and all of that. But the funny thing is that I said, but I looked at him, and I don't know if you remember this, I said, but I forgot one thing. And he goes, you got to be kidding me, what'd you forget? And I said, I forgot about myself, because I didn't realize I put so much energy into making sure that her transition was as smooth as possible, which it was. But then that was the reality of, like, now I've got to deal with, you know, myself, you know, and I did, and I had the support of my daughter and loved ones and all of that, and it worked out fine. But imprinting, that worked amazingly. So, but you've got to work it to your own personality of the one you're taking care of. So again, there's a lot of great facilities out there. The biggest thing that you've really, in my opinion, you've got to look, Chuck made he coached me on something. He goes, Tracy, you're looking at sometimes facilities. I looked at some of these bigger facilities. He goes, bricks and mortar, you can go into these places that look like country clubs. He goes, that's going to make the caregiver feel great. He said, but really to the patient, they're not going to notice those things. All right. Now you want somebody that's going to be in a safe, clean environment. And that's where Polly is. She's in an amazing house, and they're just impeccably clean and so forth. But it goes back to what Chuck was saying. You've got to find the care. You've got to make sure you've got the right people there that are loving the patients and taking care of the patients. That is the number one, in my opinion, that's the number one criteria, to look for in any place. And if you've got that, then you're pretty much home free. The last quick comment I'll make is this too, is that just in these facilities, they're not cheap, which I'm sure you're probably going to be aware of. But once you put a person in the facility, it's not like you just wipe your hands and say, okay, I'm done, right? Now you can just kind of move on. Of course you're not, you're going to be with your loved one, but you've got to be active. I mean, I'm over at this house, 4 or 5 times a week. I'm constantly there. This staff is part of my family, from that standpoint. And so, you know, it's just the more active you are, the better care that it's a teamwork. I'm all about team. And and she's got the best care possible. She's got Chuck, she's got the home, she's got hospice, she's got myself. You want to build your team in order to give the best care possible. And Paulie is an amazing care right now with everybody involved. It's not just the home, it's everybody. And I just want to kind of stress that. You have options. You know, COVID has now kind of threw everything in a monkey wrench, but there are facilities that you could try to look into that have these types of services. Another option is that you can, and I would highly recommend, try to find somebody that maybe you can bring in your home. You know, the key is this: as a caregiver, and Phil, you're at this point, you and I've talked about this a lot, is that you're going to have to get away for your own sanity. Even if you got, you know, 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, half a day, you know, bring somebody into your home that you can trust, that would be loving and all of that, just to do whatever you need to do. Go grocery shopping, go to the library, go see a movie, go to the hardware store, whatever. Take a walk, go to the bar. Yeah, go to the bar. Just you've got to be able to do it. These little respites are critical. And I would just say it's got to be very strategic. And in my opinion, it's got to be done, because if you don't do it, trust me, you will start wearing down. You will. It's just a natural fact. The human body can only take so much.
Dr. Edwards and Tracy, I do have a question that came in through the chat here. The question is, are there really a lot of great places?
As far as facilities?
Yes.
Yes, I think there are, you know, but there are great facilities out there, but you've got to do your research. You know, it's just like anything. You can't, in my opinion, you just can't go on the computer and just look at websites. You've got to go and you've got to visit them. You've got to talk to them. You've got to be able to, like Chuck said, you've got to understand what type of care is actually going to be given. You've got to be in the trenches, you know, and then start, you know, crossing the ones off that you like and put the check boxes, the ones that you do like. Is there a perfect facility? I don't think there's not a perfect facility, all right? Because there's no such thing in my idea as perfection, but you can have a facility that has the heart and the soul that hopefully that will do what they can to give your loved one the best care possible. But like I said, don't just depend all on them. It's the same concept probably when we were young parents. You just don't drop your kid off at school or a daycare and just say, okay, that's it. You do, but you're asking questions, you're involved. And the more you do that, then the better you're going to be able to assess and then support what they need in order to give your loved one. This journey, the only way this journey ends, it's going to end when Paulie leaves. That's when it ends. But for right now, I'm still in the trenches, you know, and it's, like I said, it's very rewarding. Not easy, but rewarding.
And I have a comment from one of our participants. They wanted to share that they used Care Patrol to help them find a facility and said it helped them a lot.
Yes, we will definitely have it's called Global Deterioration Scale, and we will have GDS, and we will put the number right on it. We have a tremendous amount of content on our website, okay? And it's mmclt.org. And then you go on there, and there are 2 videos that I would like everyone here to see. The first is one I did on the stages of caregiving, and it's called Return to Matthews Glen, because both my parents died out there. And I kind of go into what it was like to return to that place where I'd been, I guess, 500 times in the 2 or 3 years that they were there. And a lot of but I just break it down into more emotional phases instead of looking at the patient and saying, oh, this is stage 4 or 5, whatever. What I want to do is, caregiving is an emotional journey, and I break it down. The other one I would like y'all, and this is especially for you, Bruce, is in our Caregiver Connections course, and I think we call it Take Charge now. It is hospice and end of life. And what I go over is the 5 ways we get out of this world. And what Bruce is getting to is kind of a controversial thing, but the patients oftentimes will develop what are called apraxias, the loss of learned motor movements. You usually see it in brushing your teeth first on, and then it starts to affect eating. They lose the ability to use a knife when they're cutting, and then you'll see them start to do crazy stuff, eat soup with a fork or whatever. Then they lose the ability to use a utensil, and then they start to use their hands, and we encourage that. We want them to, we have all kinds of food to prepare and put in chunks. I love fish sticks, so we call that the fish stick stage. And then what happens is that they lose the ability to feed themselves. Now, I have a bias, and I share that bias, but I just want to prepare people for that, because at that point, I do not recommend that we force feed, meaning that we would take from our hands and feed a patient who does not know who they are or what's going on 3 meals a day, okay? Now, but that's a decision that you make. I can guide you, but I want you to know when we come to that bifurcation, that decision tree, that if we start to force feed, it's almost impossible to stop. And things can go on for a long period of time. But here's the most important thing. When this is over, like for Tracy, the most important thing when we have to leave her, the most important thing is for him to feel that I did my best. We made the best decisions we could. It wasn't perfect, but we did the best we could. And I'm going to put a period at the end of the sentence, and then I'm going to go on. Not to feel guilty about those decisions or have a lot of regret or whatever, remorse, that we did our best and we're going to move on. And that's the most important thing for any of us, okay? None of us are perfect. And so we're going to struggle with certain parts of this. We're going to be impatient. We're going to be agitated. We're going to yell, and that's okay. Forgive yourself and move on. So, but we have some hard decisions. My job is to prepare you for those decisions, to prepare you for what's going to happen, so you'll know. We do not like our patients to die in the hospital. If they die in the hospital, something has gone awry. So we like them 92% die at home, or they die in their facility. And oftentimes we get these marvelous experiences where the families are there and they can hold their hands and they can and be with them. That's what we want. If we've made good decisions, then that's what we want. So we're going to end it there. Okay.
Yeah.
We've gone over a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Edwards.
I can't thank y'all enough for tuning in here. I hope that but what an amazing thing to have Tracy here.
Yeah, vice versa.
Thank you, Boyd, and thank you, Dr. Edwards and Tracy. Just an amazing session. I know we all could probably stay on for another hour, so thank you. I just wanted to just remind people, if you haven't already done so, you can purchase a copy of Much Abides here in the office, and happy to send it to you, or you can pick it up here. And also wanted to thank Southminster, who is our sponsor of the Take Charge Live sessions. And they are a great partner to us. They've provided a lot of grant support to enable us to provide services to the community. And I'm sure many of you know what a fantastic facility they have, but also they do have a home care company that provides care to individuals in their homes. So if you need some more information on them, we're happy to provide that and help you in any way.